Odin lied. There wasn't one hammer forged in Asgard. There were two. One chose Thor. The other was hidden, cursed, and locked away. Because it was meant to kill whoever tried to lift it. And now it's calling to Thor. It speaks his name in the voice of his father. But when Thor touches it, it doesn't give him power, it steals it. And the only one who can stop what happens next is Loki. Smoke still bled from the cracks of what was once the vault of Asgard. The sky above was broken, not torn by war, but by something deeper, something beneath. Thor stood where the golden halls had crumbled into ruins, his boots pressing ash and memory into the earth. His breath was steady. His eyes were not. He wasn't supposed to be here. This place had been sealed. But something had called him. Not like Heimdall's voice in the stars. Not like Mjolnir. This was older, hungrier, and it spoke only once. Come home, son of Odin. The words were not sound, they were pressure. A weight in his bones. Thor descended. The steps into the subchambers hadn't existed on any map. Even in the All-Father's knowledge, this place had never been named. But his hands knew how to trace the wall. His fingers felt the grooves. A faint whisper of storm pulsed in his veins, drawn lower, deeper, colder. He passed the skeleton. Not bones. Armor. Black, scorched, ancient. Not Asgardian. Not known. And then the door opened. Not with a command. Not with magic. It shuddered open, as if breathing. The chamber was obsidian, carved from something that hated light. Runes crawled across the ceiling, glowing dimly with words and tongues Thor could barely recognize. One word repeated, burned in a cursed loop. Vanmar. Not a name, a warning. The killing one. It sat in the center, a hammer, but not Mjolnir, not Stormbreaker. This was older. The metal shimmered in layers, black, deep gold, then black again, like a heartbeat. The handle was wrapped in chain, not leather, as if to bind it, not wield it. And at the top, engraved where the thunder should live, was the sigil of Odin. But this wasn't pride. This was fear. Thor didn't speak. He didn't call lightning. He didn't roar a challenge into the dark. He stepped forward and extended his hand, as he had done 1,000 times before. But this time, the hammer spoke first. Unworthy. The chains unwrapped on their own. The air shattered, and Thor screamed. Lightning ripped from his veins, not summoned, stolen. The room lit up in blue agony. His cape burned off his shoulders. His armor cracked at the chest. The hammer was feeding on him, drinking the storm, bleeding the godhood from him piece by piece. Thor fell to one knee. Blood, real blood, slipped from his nose. He saw flashes, not visions. Memories that weren't his. Odin, alone, at this very spot, kneeling, forging this hammer in secret. It wasn't for justice. It wasn't for peace. It was a fail-safe. A weapon designed not to protect the 9 realms, but to destroy a king, his own son. Thor screamed again, this time not in pain, but in rage. He reached deeper, tried to summon Stormbreaker, but it wouldn't come. His bond was gone. Mjolnir, shattered in another life. He was weaponless, weakening. The hammer's voice echoed again, but now inside his head. Odin knew, you would rise too far, burn too bright, and one day need to be stopped. Thor slammed his fist into the floor, raw, desperate. Stone split. His lightning flared in resistance. I am not him, he roared. I am not my father. The hammer didn't care. A new rune etched across its face, Voknut, the mark of chosen death. Final death, the death of gods. Thor's muscles locked. The hammer began lifting on its own, not by a wielder, but by hunger. It hovered above him, glowing black and gold, aimed like judgment. Then it spoke in Odin's voice. You were never meant to rule. You were meant to die before you could. And the hammer fell, but it never hit. A green shimmer slammed into it midair, pure sorcery, cracking through the ancient curse. The hammer flew across the chamber, embedding itself into the far wall, shrieking like a living thing denied its prey. Thor gasped, alive. And then he saw him. Brother, said Loki, stepping out from the shadows. He was dressed in battle-worn robes, nothing like his usual tricks. His expression wasn't smug. It was scared. "You touched it," Loki said coldly. "You idiot. You actually touched it." Thor tried to rise, but his legs shook beneath him. "You knew," he growled. "I guarded it," Loki replied. "I was the seal. That hammer is the darkest thing Odin ever made. It doesn't give power, it rewrites it." Thor looked to the wall where the hammer pulsed. A faint crack in space itself now formed behind it, dripping with gold light. Loki turned to it, eyes hard. "It's opening the way to the World Forge." Thor blinked. "That's a myth." "Everything in our lives is a myth until it kills us," Loki snapped. "The Forge is real, and that hammer is going back there to finish what Odin started." Thor gritted his teeth. "Then we stop it." Loki looked at him with that rare look, the one he only wore when truth outweighed wit. "If it finishes feeding," he said softly, "you won't be Thor anymore. You'll be Odin, rewritten, reborn, cold, tactical, merciless, and I'll have to kill you myself." The silence was deeper than death. The hammer twitched. Its glow spread like fire veins across the wall. The chamber cracked. Thor rose. Not fully God, not fully man, but fully certain. "Then let's end this before it ends me." And the wall split open into golden light, a path to the forge. The hammer flew into it. Thor and Loki followed, and behind them, the runes on the floor burned away one by one, until only one remained. No king is born without a grave. The light swallowed them whole. Thor felt weightless, as if every part of him was being peeled away and examined by something older than time. His lightning, what little remained, flickered inside his veins like a dying candle in a storm. Loki held onto him by the arm, teeth clenched, magic shimmering around his fingers to keep them from being torn apart mid-travel. The golden corridor twisted, alive, throbbing like a vein leading to the heart of the cosmos. Thor could hear it breathing, not with sounds, but with memories. His father's memories. Faces, battles, screams, whispered oaths. Every echo of Odin's past rushed by in streaks of gold. Thor felt each one stab through him. He saw Odin kneeling before the world tree, Odin carving runes into stone, Odin hiding the hammer inside the vault not as a weapon for the world, but as a weapon for one soul, his. Thor's chest tightened. Why did he do this? Loki didn't answer. He didn't have to. The world answered for him. The corridor tore open. They fell into darkness, cold, colossal, endless darkness illuminated only by the floating fragments of a shattered realm. Thor pushed himself upright, boots landing on a platform of cracked marble floating in the void. Loki landed beside him gracefully, brushing dust off his robes. This place was not a room, not a hall, not even a world. It was an echo, a memory suspended outside reality, and it belonged to Odin. Thor stepped forward slowly. The void shifted, and a new scene assembled in glowing fragments, like stained glass repairing itself in midair. A forge, but not like the dwarven ones Thor knew. This forge was enormous, made from the bones of a dead star. Runes swam through the air. Chains hanging from the ceiling rattled without wind. Lava flowed upward instead of down, and Odin was there, younger, stronger, harder, wearing no crown, no armor, no wisdom, just raw fury and the weight of untold secrets. Thor froze. "Father," Loki whispered, "it's not him. It's a memory." But it felt real. Odin stood before the anvil, slamming a piece of molten metal again and again with a fury Thor had never seen. Every strike sent shockwaves rippling through the void. Thor watched in silence until he couldn't bear it. Why would he forge a second hammer? Why hide it? Loki didn't answer. Odin did. Not the Odin standing at the forge, but the Odin preserved in the memory, a younger ghost speaking aloud, as if confessing to no one. "Power corrupts," Odin said bitterly. "Even mine, even my children's." Thor stiffened. "Mjolnir chooses a worthy wielder," Odin continued. "But kings cannot always be worthy. They become threats. They rise beyond control. And if one day the throne must be protected from its own heir, Odin raised the nearly finished hammer, its black metal burning with divine hatred. Then a weapon must exist to end them. Thor felt the world closing in. This hammer wasn't meant for Hela or Loki or any unimaginable enemy. It was meant for the one Odin feared most, Thor. Loki exhaled a long, tired breath. Well, he always had trust issues. Thor's voice cracked. Loki, he forged a weapon for me. For whichever child grew too powerful, Loki corrected gently. Father was many things. Brave, wise, terrifying, paranoid, apparently thorough. The memory kept moving. Odin binding the hammer with blood, runes, and a final whisper. This is Vanmar, the killing one. Not to be lifted by hands, but by destiny. Thor felt the words burn into him like icy needles. Destiny, not choice, not worthiness. This hammer wanted him because Odin made it so. The memory darkened, collapsing back into the void like a dying star. Thor felt the world tilt. His breath was heavy. Lightning sputtered and died against his skin. I trusted him, Thor whispered. Even when he lied, I trusted him. But this is not a lie. This is a sentence. Loki rested a hand on his shoulder, a gesture rare, almost alien, but genuine. Thor, Loki said quietly, Odin built an empire on fear, on control, on sacrifice. You were never meant to know this part, because if you did, you would stop being the obedient son he shaped. Thor clenched his jaw, feeling the weight of betrayal settle deep into his bones. I still love him. And he loved you, Loki replied. But love does not excuse every act, especially not this. Suddenly, the void cracked again, this time not with memory, but with presence. The hammer floated toward them through the darkness. No chains, no runes, no restraint. It had awakened fully. Its glow changed, darker, hotter, alive with stolen thunder. Thor felt the last flickers of his power drain even faster, like the hammer was inhaling him from the inside. It spoke again, Odin's voice layered with something ancient and monstrous beneath. Your fate is written. You will be rewritten. Thor staggered, gripping his chest. It's taking more. Loki. Loki stepped between Thor and the hammer, summoning a shield of emerald fire. You can steal from God, Loki hissed, but you cannot steal from me. The hammer pulsed. Loki's shield cracked, then shattered. The shockwave hurled Loki across the void, crashing him into a floating slab of obsidian. Thor roared and lunged, but the ground beneath him dissolved, and he fell to one knee, unable to stand. His vision blurred. Odin's voice grew closer, echoing inside his mind. You were my greatest fear, my greatest weapon, my greatest mistake. Thor slammed his fist into the void floor, sparks flickering weakly. I am not your mistake. But the hammer didn't stop. It seized him, not physically, soul first. Thor felt himself tearing, like the storm inside him was being ripped away strand by strand. His heartbeat stuttered. His arms shook uncontrollably. His vision dimmed. He saw Odin's face in the glow. He saw his father's regret, his pride, his fear. He saw the truth. The hammer wasn't just meant to kill Thor. It was meant to replace him. Thor's essence, rewritten into Odin's final form. The perfect king, the perfect soldier, the perfect weapon, a puppet of the Allfather. Thor screamed, lightning bursting from his mouth like fire. The hammer flared, but just as it prepared to consume him entirely, Loki rose again, bloodied, furious, unstoppable. He threw his dagger into the hammer's core. The void shook. The hammer screeched like a dying star. Thor collapsed onto the marble platform, gasping for air as the soul drain halted. Loki staggered forward, wiping blood from his lip. You're not dying today, brother, Loki said. Not as Odin's shadow, not as anyone's weapon. The hammer began to recover, its glow spiking. Loki grabbed Thor by the arm and whispered harshly, We have one chance left. We must reach the root of Yggdrasil. Only there can we cut the bond. Only there can we free your soul. Thor looked up at him, weak, terrified, but alive. Loki, if we fail. If we fail, Loki said, I'll kill you myself before I let that hammer turn you into father. Thor nodded slowly. Then let's end this. They turned toward the path forming ahead, a bridge of light leading deeper into the cosmic abyss. The hammer followed, closer, hungrier, silent now, because it no longer needed to speak. The roots of Yggdrasil were not made of wood. They were carved from time. As Thor and Loki stepped onto the path suspended above the void, the stars twisted beneath their feet. The roots pulsed like arteries across realms, glowing with ancient runes older than language. Each step Thor took burned his body. The hammer's bond dragged behind his soul like chains no blade could cut. But he walked anyway. Loki was ahead, silent now, magic flickering at his fingertips like restless fire. His coat fluttered in invisible winds that carried whispers, names of forgotten gods, words from dead worlds. He didn't look back. Thor's breath was heavy, his body still cracked with weakness. Lightning no longer answered him like before, and deep inside, he could feel the thing inside the hammer gnawing at what was left. Not killing him, replacing him. "You should have told me," Thor finally muttered. Loki stopped. The path rippled beneath his boots. "I was told never to," he said. "I was the seal, the only one who knew, the only one Odin trusted enough to destroy you if this ever happened." Thor frowned. "And you didn't?" Loki turned. "I almost did." Silence. "But I didn't," Loki continued, "because for once in his wretched life, Odin was wrong." He stepped closer to Thor now. "He saw your power, but I saw your restraint. You've been stronger than him for years, but you never used it like he did. You didn't want thrones. You wanted peace. And if that made you weak in his eyes," Loki's voice lowered, "it made you worthy in mine." Thor's throat tightened. The hammer pulsed again, a sick heartbeat inside him now. "Faster." "We're close," Loki said. "At the root, time becomes fluid. We sever the bond, we purge the rewrite, but the hammer will fight back." "Let it." "You say that now," Loki muttered, "but what's coming isn't Odin." The sky above them cracked, a jagged line splitting through stars and constellations like shattered glass. Something enormous was falling toward them. Thor didn't need to look. The hammer was coming, no longer flying, hunting. They ran. The final route twisted downward into a canyon of floating ruins. Below, the core of Yggdrasil glowed like a living sun, wrapped in tendrils of time and myth. The heart of all realms, the place where gods were born and forgotten. Loki summoned a dagger carved from dragon bone, older than Asgard, never drawn until now. Its edge shimmered with soul-cutting energy. "You have to kneel," Loki said. Thor narrowed his eyes. "To cut the tether, I have to reach into your core, into your soul. You have to let me in." Thor didn't hesitate. He dropped to his knees. His arms trembled. The storm inside him began to twist. Not his. The hammer was taking over again. "Do it," Thor growled. "Now." Loki pressed the blade to Thor's chest and cut. Not skin, not muscle, but essence. Thor's eyes rolled back as his soul cracked open. A scream exploded from his mouth as the tether to the hammer flared. Gold lightning tangled with black fire. Loki stabbed deeper. The bond screamed. Reality bent. And then the hammer struck. It didn't fly down. It dropped like a star crash. The shockwave hit like a god's death cry. Loki was thrown across the platform. The dagger spun away, vanishing into light. Thor collapsed, twitching, coughing blood. The hammer hovered above him. But it wasn't a weapon anymore. It had grown. It had changed. It had absorbed too much. Thor's lightning, Odin's memory, cosmic will. And now it had shape. A figure. Rising from the hammer was a form made of storm and shadow. Odin's armor, Thor's frame, and no face. Just a void where eyes should be. A god-killer born of both bloodlines. Loki rose slowly. "It's alive," he whispered. "It used you to become a vessel." The figure raised its arm. Chains unwrapped from its form, glowing, jagged, soaked in Odin's runes. They shot toward Thor. Loki snapped his fingers, teleporting between the chains and Thor. The chains hit him instead, wrapping around his chest, crushing ribs instantly. He screamed, not in pain but defiance. "Thor," he roared, "you're not done. Fight it." The figure hovered closer, one hand still glowing, still rewriting. Thor's eyes opened, glowing with flickers of lightning. He grabbed one of the chains still binding Loki and pulled. "I'm not Odin," he growled. He rose to his feet, lightning returning slowly, sparking off his shoulders. "I'm not a weapon." He yanked Loki free. "And I'm not done yet." He hurled the chain, and it pierced the figure's void chest. The hammer inside the figure shrieked. Thor summoned what remained of his power, not lightning, but will, his soul. And he charged. Fist met storm. The platform exploded in light. Time shattered. Yggdrasil screamed. Loki dove through the blast, grabbed the dragonbone dagger midair, and drove it into the figure's back, straight through the core of the hammer. The scream stopped. The light collapsed, and the figure cracked. Its form broke into dust, scattered like ash across the root of the tree. The hammer dropped to the ground, dead. Thor collapsed to his knees, drained, his breath ragged, the tether gone. He was free. Loki knelt beside him, covered in blood, panting. "You all right?" he asked. Thor coughed. "I hate hammers." They both laughed, tired, bruised, but alive. Behind them, the core of Yggdrasil pulsed once more, sealing the realm's fracture, sealing the curse that had nearly rewritten a god. But as they prepared to return, something moved. The shattered fragments of the hammer didn't vanish. They twisted, shifted, merged into a new form, one not made of metal, but flesh. Eyes opened in the dark, and the last echo of Odin's wrath blinked. The Bifrost didn't open. It cracked. Thor and Loki crashed into a realm that shouldn't exist, not in space, not in time. The sky was white fire. The ground was obsidian glass. And at the center stood a forge older than creation, pulsing with the breath of stars. The World Forge. It was not built by gods. It built gods. Thor stumbled forward, scorched, coughing. The lightning inside him flickered, but it no longer obeyed. Since the hammer's awakening, the storm had changed. It no longer roared, it watched. Loki steadied him. "We're not alone." He was right. From the molten center of the forge rose a being shaped like fire wrapped in armor. No face, just light. No footsteps, just tremors. "You were not meant to return," the being said. Its voice was thunder underwater. The forge was sealed after Odin's final decree. Thor stepped forward. Odin built a weapon here. A second hammer. It nearly consumed me. The being didn't flinch. That was the first lie. The last hammer. Loki frowned. What lie? The being pointed at Thor. That he was ever meant to be king. Thor's fist tightened. "What am I then?" "A prototype." The forge pulsed. Memories lit the walls in glowing flame. Odin crafting not just a hammer, but a vessel. A backup. A god designed for war, rewritten when needed, obedient. Thor had never been born to rule. He had been built to reset the throne if Odin failed. The hammer was never cursed. It was a remote key. Loki's jaw clenched. This was never about power. This was about control. Thor's chest heaved. "I'm not your weapon. I broke the bond." "You severed one layer," the being said. "The deeper rewrite lives inside the forge. Unless burned from the source, you will change." The forge rumbled. Something rose behind it. A figure, twisted, familiar, made of ash and god essence. A warped version of Thor. Same eyes, same build, but burning with corrupted lightning and Odin's cold wrath. "You severed the bond," it whispered. "But I am what's left." The hammer's remnant had made a body. It had become him. The copy raised its hand, storm erupting from its palm. The sky ripped apart. Loki threw up a shield. It shattered instantly. Thor launched forward, slamming into the figure, but they matched each other blow for blow. The same strength, same instincts, same rage. But the copy didn't hesitate. Thor did. It caught Thor by the throat, lifting him. "You were made soft." Lightning crackled. But before the copy could strike, Loki appeared behind it, dagger glowing green. He whispered, "Never underestimate the runt." He stabbed it in the spine. The clone screamed, not in pain, but defiance. It exploded in pure lightning. The shockwave flung them all back. The forge cracked. Thor rose, breath ragged. We end this now. He drove Stormbreaker, reborn through pure will, into the heart of the forge. Light erupted. The forge screamed. The rewrite protocols, Odin's last plan, began to burn. The copy disintegrated. The backup memories shattered. And the forge went dark. The world forge, for the first time in eternity, died. Thor collapsed. Loki caught him. No more hammers, Thor whispered. No more fathers, Loki replied. They turned toward the exit, a tear in the realm awaiting them. But behind them, deep inside the extinguished forge, something blinked. Once, twice, and smiled. Thor had never felt so human. The storm was still in him, but it no longer surged. It breathed, as if waiting. He stood at the edge of Yggdrasil's final bridge, the void swirling below, the dead world forge behind. His body was cracked with light scars, remnants of the rewrite that had nearly erased him. Beside him, Loki was silent, not mocking, not smirking, just tired. The wind was cold here, not cosmic, real. What now? Loki asked. Thor looked at his hands. The hammer is gone. The clone is gone. The forge is dead. Loki raised a brow. And yet you still sound cursed. Thor exhaled. Because I am. He opened his palm. A shard remained. The last fragment of the second hammer, Vanmar, glowed dimly in his hand, whispering in runes no one should still understand. Not metal, not magic, but memory. Odin's final echo. Thor squeezed his fist and crushed it. No more lies. Yggdrasil trembled, acknowledging the death of something ancient. But behind them, the stars rippled. Thor turned. From the ashes of the world forge, a shape was rising. Not another clone, not a hammer, a being. It had no form, no name, just the shattered energy of everything Odin tried to bottle into Thor, now loose, unbound. Lightning bled from it like smoke. Loki stepped back. What is it? Thor stared. Everything Odin feared, he said, and everything he created to stop it. The being didn't attack. It simply existed. The final consequence of centuries of control, of rewriting, of weapon building. It was rage, memory, a god born from godhood itself. Thor walked toward it, barehanded. Loki hissed, "What are you doing?" "No more battles," Thor said. He raised his hand toward the creature. "I am not your vessel," he said. "I am not your cage." The being trembled. "You are not my shadow," Thor added. "You're my warning." It rushed toward him. Thor didn't flinch. It struck his chest and passed through him. For a moment, he saw it all again. The boy who tried to impress Odin. The prince who chased war. The god who lost everything. And then, light. The being dissolved. Not into death, but into Thor. Returning home, not as power, but as choice. Thor opened his eyes, glowing, not with storm, but with clarity. He turned to Loki. "It's done." Loki stared, stunned. "You absorbed it?" "I accepted it." Thunder cracked in the distance. Not summoned, natural. For the first time in centuries, the realms were free of Odin's chains. No more contingency plans. No more hidden weapons. No more cursed hammers. Only gods who chose who they became. Thor walked to the edge of the realm, summoned the Bifrost one last time. Loki joined him. As the rainbow light rose around them, Loki asked, "Do we tell anyone?" Thor smiled faintly. "Let them believe the hammer was destroyed. Let them believe Odin planned well. And if the truth returns..." Thor's eyes narrowed. "Then I'll be ready. This time as myself." They vanished into the light. Far behind them, deep in the void, where the world forge once lived, a pulse blinked once inside the darkness. It had no name, not yet, but it remembered one thing, the sound of a god being rewritten, and it was listening.